East policy expert, Dr. Zuhdi Jasser. He's also the founder of American Islamic Forum for Democracy. He's announced his run for Congress in Arizona. He's very busy. We're happy you could come today to talk about this. You know, Zuhdi, we talk about the historic Abraham Accords and the potential for more countries to join. President Trump also had put some pressure on Syria recently when he was over in the Middle East. What do you see as the possibility for a reshaping of the Middle East expansion that's tangible here under this second administration?
Yeah, Bianca, I have to tell you how reassuring and how resilient and brilliant I think the Abraham Accords 1.0 proved to be. It's sort of resilience under fire, despite the just war that Israel's been waging in order to get their hostages back and decimate Hamas. None of the countries have withdrawn. They've had persistent, significant economic improvement with over 50 different agreements between simply the four countries, Bahrain, the Emirates, Morocco, and Sudan, along with the United States. And we saw through the Abraham Accords, by the way, as you mentioned, the UN and others, we now know that through the Abraham Accords, how irrelevant the UN and Qatar and Iran have become in radicalizing Muslims and enemies of the West and Israel. And now we see the hope for Abraham Accords 2.0, which may bring in, hopefully, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Jordan, and even Syria.
Well, you know, under Biden, there was really no hope with Saudi Arabia after he called MBS a pariah. You saw President Trump go over there, a different relationship, obviously, but, you know, Saudi Arabia dealing with the Iranian proxies, the Houthis, with its civil war. So they are incentivized to obviously not be part of what is happening in the past, but looking forward to, you know, rebuilding the Middle East. And I think some of the controversy, if you will, with the people, you know, in the UN, it's now been dispelled. People see it for what it is. It's really such an eye-opening experience where they see the potential for a Middle East that's thriving, where people are happy, where people are reimagined, really. And President Trump sort of broke this mold, standing next to Bibi Netanyahu, saying, yeah, we would make Gaza a Riviera. And people were shocked, but it was timing, and it was a perfect message that's now reverberated.
100%. And, you know, you see the economic successes with the agreements and the sales and the technological sharing and the cultural exchanges that have existed now with sports and others with some of these countries, and the marginalization. And now we're finally, as somebody who's been working against radical Islam throughout my life, we're finally starting to see the importance of declaring the Muslim Brotherhood a terror organization, and radical fonts like Al Jazeera and Iran. We saw the decimation of Iran's nuclear facilities, the assistance of CENTCOM, and finally using bunker buster bombs, and all of that did not even phase the Abraham Accords and the move of other countries to come with us. So we're seeing a separation in the world of the radicals of that red-green axis, the Chinas and Muslim Brotherhood and Irans of the world, versus the free world in the West, and the startup nature of corporations and think tanks and ingenuity and entrepreneurship that we're beginning to see, and that shift in countries like Saudi Arabia and others away from the old Wahhabism towards actually starting to modernize, hopefully.
Right. And you mentioned something in one of your first answers I just want to touch on, because we saw Marco Rubio with his visit to Israel, and then he did go over to Doha, Qatar, and there were, you know, the IDF going in last week to try to take out the top Hamas leaders. And then, you know, President Trump was clear, saying, you know, our support for Israel unwavering, but he didn't think it advanced the goals. I mean, obviously, some of the top leaders of Hamas have been living in the lap of luxury in these, you know, enclaves here of Doha. So Qatar is obviously trying to get more security as well from the United States. That's sort of a new development today. What do you think of that relationship and the way it can be smoothed over with Secretary Rubio being there, and obviously President Trump's comments as well?
Well, that relationship, I think we're beginning to expose the double nature that the Qataris have long played us for fools, especially under the Obama-Biden administrations. And the Trump administration and Secretary Rubio are not going to take that. Obviously, we have a large base there, so there is some solid history and mutual security interests. But Qatar, half of its economy comes from natural gas fields with Iran. Its state media is anti-Western, anti-Semitic. Al Jazeera is spewing anti-American ideology all the time. So we're going to hold them accountable for that. And the way to start that is to declare the Muslim Brotherhood a foreign terror organization. Secretary Rubio has talked about that. The Hamas enemy leadership has taken haven there. And just as we got bin Laden in Pakistan, who's supposedly an ally, we applaud Israel for going after Hamas where they don't have haven in Qatar. They should not be given haven there. And it's not a surprise that Qatar has always had every radical group from the Taliban to ISIS on speed dial. And that double game is being exposed with the Secretary Rubio.
All right. Well, obviously, there is still so much hope for the expansion, as we talked about, for the Abraham Accords now 2.0, this administration. Dr. Zuhdi Jasser, appreciate your thoughtful analysis of where we stand today. Thank you.
Anytime. Thanks, Bian.